Welcome to The Untold Story, everybody. I'm Martha McCallum, and it is great to have you back with us today. I'm joined by a really special guest today, who, if you're like me and you think that The Sopranos is probably the finest piece of artistic work on television over the last 20 years, then you will know a lot about this woman. She won an Emmy for her depiction of Adriana on The Sopranos, and she's an excellent actress. She's been on Woody Allen's New York I Love You, Sons of Anarchy, Desperate Housewives, and now she's sort of expressing herself in a whole lot of new ways, which is also super interesting. So, Drea De Matteo, thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here. I love you.
You know, well, thank you. I love you too. And I actually had to indulge, and I'm going to talk about what's going on in your life now. I know everybody wants to, talk about The Sopranos, but I think it is significant. And I know it was a significant part of your life. And today I went back and watched that scene, and it still is so disturbing. And it's the final scene. Your work before that is so multi-layered and amazing. The things that you go through with Christopher in that relationship on screen is pretty incredible. When you look back at all of that, what is it like for you, to think about that work and what it was like as an actress?
Oh man, I mean, it was such a long time ago, but my voice is cracking, not because I'm getting emotional, but it was emotional. It was right at the beginning of the changing of the guard, I feel like, in this country. And I remember David Chase talking about how it was sort of a commentary on the decline of American civilization, kind of. And then we had 9/11. It was a different time. And before that time, there was still so much innocence, I felt like, for all of us. And me being on that show, I was at the beginning of my life, the beginning of my career, even though I was about 26 years old, maybe. But, so yeah, it was an incredible moment in time, no matter how intense the moments were that I had to perform and all of that. I mean, that was hard to do all that, especially when I took my acting very seriously back then. But I almost feel like I'm in the same spot now, 25 years later, except my role is completely different. But it's not much different in a very weird way, because it's still dealing.
Say that, and I want to ask you about that.
Yeah, it's like corruption.
You brought up a couple of things in my mind when you were talking, which is, in the open, which is one of the best opens of any show, I think, the intro to The Sopranos. You see the World Trade Centers.
Yeah.
And, for those of us who live right across the river and who experienced all of that firsthand, it's always kind of catches my breath when I see those two towers in that image. And it was also the beginning of, everyone today just takes for granted, oh, what are you watching? What series are you watching right now? What did you get sucked into and you can't stop watching? But it was really the first. I mean, the first time that I remember my husband and I, we lived in Hoboken at the time, and we came home from driving home from somewhere on the weekend, and we just started watching the show. And we couldn't stop watching it. But it was a completely new format to have a series like that.
Yeah, we broke ground with that. HBO had a few shows before, like Oz, and I think the Gary Shandling show, which was great. They had a few of those types of series, Dream On, I think. But HBO with The Sopranos, it was just, people love the mafia genre. But then telling a story with, not following any of the rules. You don't have the incredibly handsome lead. It just went against everything. You know what I mean? I think people were ready for a change at that time, but we broke ground for cable networks. We changed the face of it. When I started the show, I was like, I don't want to be on a TV show. I want to be a movie star. Mm-hmm. And little did I know that I would never want to do a movie after that. I would only want to be in those types of TV shows.
Yeah, and I think it was the beginning of people saying, well, actually what's on TV is better than what's happening in the movies. And I think that was the first, really just incredibly well-crafted experience. I know your mom was at HB Studios in New York.
Yeah,
right? So you grew up around acting and actors. I studied at Circle in the Square after college. So, it's a world that I know a little something about. So you grew up around the craft of acting.
I did. I grew up in it. I swore I would never do it. I went to film school as the anti-theater person.
Yeah.
I grew up watching Herbert Berghoff directing all her plays, Uta Hagen in the plays. It was a lot. I was like, I want to play house. I'm a little kid having to watch these rehearsals. I hate this. So I swore I'd never do it. But I got Sopranos, and that was it. I didn't really set out to become an actor, but watching my mom teach writing taught me how to act. I hadn't really taken too many acting classes. I did a little bit. I did Meisner, which I loved, and I felt like I didn't like that Strasberg stuff. I didn't like that. It was too fake for me. I felt like it was too much lying. And Meisner at least was right back and forth.
Reacting.
Yes, the reaction, the behavior.
Rather than, for those who don't know, the sort of Strasberg acting study is sort of digging into your emotions, going into deeply held things that have happened to you, using those experiences for your work on stage or in film. So it's draining, and a lot of people swear by it. The other method is also very interesting.
You need an element of it. You need an element of the Strasberg stuff. But if you make that your Bible, you'll suddenly see lots of actors become extremely indulgent human beings.
And I hate to dwell on, like I said, so much of the work that you do while you're alive on The Sopranos is extraordinary. But that murder scene, I think, is so intense because it's such a bright day. It's sunny. It's the middle of the afternoon. The brutality of it is so much more potent, I think, because of those things, because he's just doing business. Yeah. Silvio. He has to get rid of you. And your sort of frantic scramble to try to, get out the other side of the car door and all of that. What was it like for you shooting that? I know that you knew by that point that it was your...
Oh, yeah. I mean, we shot it 2 ways. Yeah. We shot it 2 ways over the confidentiality on set. So... And when David told me that we were doing this, he said, you'll know when it airs. So I didn't know. I mean, I knew because I had taken another job and I got in trouble that it got out into the public. But we shot it 2 ways. The actual scene where I'm scurrying out into the woods, I mean, I was already I knew I was out of there for a while. So Stevie was mortified that he had to do all of that stuff. Pull me out by my hair, call me the C word, all of that. I'm like, Stevie, I got a dinner to be at. We're going to shoot
Go ahead, let's do it.
We're going to be fine. Because for me, my big scene was when I confessed to him.
Yes.
That was it. When I had that scene with him, that was...
That you were an FBI informant, that you had turned on him.
All of it. The whole season leading up to that final moment had been so intense for me, the whole series, that by the time I got into the woods with Stevie, I was like, let's just have a good time.
Interesting. That's fascinating.
And you don't see me that much.
No, I know. I realized that. It felt a lot longer when I saw it years ago. And when I went back and watched it, I was like, it's pretty quick.
Yeah. And we shot it 2 ways. So you see me imagining getting out.
Yes.
But that was really an alternate ending so that the crew wouldn't know what happened because there was a rat on set.
Who was telling people what was going on. Not an actual rat.
Yeah. They were getting paid tons of money to leave the show.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
So you said something when we first started talking about how you feel like that was cutting edge as a young actress and the kind of storytelling, and that now you feel like you're on a different kind of cutting edge. What do you mean by that?
Oh my God. I don't have a connection to Hollywood anymore. I don't feel connected to it, to the way they do their business, I feel like the corporatism, I guess, that is just infiltrated absolutely every walk of life has sort of just taken the beauty and the joy out of everything, kind of. And I feel like what's happening in the world right now is so much more important than, acting like somebody else. I understand that it's a beautiful art form and that we need it and that it moves people. I think music too. I sort of feel like the American dream's on hold, and I feel like the arts are on hold. I feel like everything's been on hold for a long time. When we shot Sopranos, 9/11 was going on, and we actually took the Twin Towers out. We re-edited that show. We had it in the beginning when they existed, and then when they didn't exist, we had them out. I always joke around when I look at that tower downtown. I go, oh, look, it's the Anti-Freedom Tower. Because that was the day everything changed, sort of. And, the Patriot Act, there's just so much stuff happening and now we're here. In the last 3 or 4 years, Once you see the truth about everything, it's hard to unsee it. So to think about, just having this fun Hollywood life, while they're plastering all these Puff Daddy parties and everything all over the news. And I'm like, no, I wasn't one of those parties. And I'm like, I can't believe I know there's a lot of huge implications behind all that craziness. But back then, we were just having a good time. Like, no one was really fully aware of look, corruption's been going on since the dawn of time. I get it, and it'll always be there. But I think with the dawn of the technological, there's like so much technology out there. A lot can be suppressed, but a lot is also going to be leaked. And once you see those leaks, you're just like, wow, this is a whole new terrain. And a lot of people are unaware of it all.
So is there anybody out there that you look at that who you think can break through that and can make things it's interesting, you talk about how things are sort of stale and on pause and frozen. Is there anyone you think politically or in any walk of life, I guess, that can change that? Or what do you think ultimately might change that? I think that there's a lot of underground kind of networks of communities coming together. Now, we have a rally in, it's not we, but these people that I immensely respect are having sort of a peace rally in DC on Sunday, on September 29th. It's called Rescue the Republic. Mm-hmm. And a lot of those speakers have been the voices for the last 4 years, I think, coming out of the pandemic and trying to understand what was happening in the world. Everybody is sort of, these are the voices, I think, like the old, I'm an old liberal. So for me, it's like all of the old Democrat voices to me were the voices of, the intellect of our cultural art world, all of this. It's moved over to this sort of, we have no political party now. We are leaning in towards the right, because it doesn't feel like the corruption is living inside there as blatantly. I believe that the people that are on the right now really want to do the right thing. That all remains to be seen. Obviously, I'm not coming here to give any answers about anything, but those people at that rally that are going to be speaking on Sunday, they break it down for everybody to understand what is actually going on. And you can look at my Ultrafree shirt here. It's Ultrafree globalism. Just the whole, it's the fact that we're all in this cage, and it's like the Truman Show, and nobody really knows it. And they're going to be breaking it all down. And it's a lot of liberals that have left the Democratic Party because, man, I don't even know how to get into it without getting really deep into the woods. But if anybody's interested in understanding, a lot of my friends think I'm crazy now, and I'm like, no, I'm not crazy. I'm still exactly the same. I'm like, what's crazy is that all of my liberal friends are going to vote for war. They're going to vote for no medical freedom. They're going to vote for this, what's happening at the UN today. Now, when you say no medical freedom, what do you mean?
Well, look, I know a lot of women are going to...
And you chose not to get vaccinated. I think everybody's aware of that part of your story and how it kind of separated you from the work that you had done for so long. But just as one example, when you say no medical freedom, I think a lot of people hear abortion rights when you say that.
Well, I'll touch on that because I think that's a really important thing, especially here at Fox, because we can kind of lean into some of those things. You can't do it on other networks. You guys are the only ones.
Thank you.
That get close to it. I know you guys still have to do your thing, but still, it's closer to the truth than anywhere else right now. And the abortion thing, I think I know a lot of the left-leaning women are going to vote just based on abortion and just based on LGBT. I forget them. I'm sorry. Just based on a lot of social issues. And I think that right now, if they really knew what was at stake, and I could actually cry talking about it, if they really knew what was behind that distraction, nobody would care. They would not care about these issues. I think handing it over to the states was the easiest way to take it out of one's hands, because I honestly don't think that it's one of Trump's, and I know that maybe conservatives wouldn't like to hear that either, but I also don't really think that's not his mountain to die on. I think that he'd rather just give it to the states, because honestly, that's a democracy. And at this point, we're losing sovereignty all over. This UN summit is all about giving our sovereignty away completely and putting it in the hands of a globalist agenda, which is the most dangerous thing. And they took that WHO treaty, which is about medical stuff and any kind of an emergency, any kind of national emergency. You give that to the WHO, and those are unelected
like the pandemic.
officials. The pandemic treaty. So they took that treaty because nobody would vote on it. A lot of Republicans voted against it, and they slipped it into this UN pact for the future. And that's a pact for no future. Everyone's focused on this 2025 thing that they think is Trump's. I'm like, why don't you guys focus on Agenda 2030? Because that's really where the problems are. And that's actually what the freedom fighters are trying to fight. And the freedom fighters right now, believe it or not, it's Trump's team. It's the people he surrounded himself with. Maybe he was surrounded by neocons before, but right now, that's not the team he's got in place. So it's a scary time that we're living in, and a lot of kids don't know the truth.
Give us, one or two specific examples so people can understand when you talk about medical freedom, or you talk about what's happening at the UN right now, and what you fear in terms of the control of these global organizations over people's lives and freedom, just to kind of pin it down a little bit.
Let's see. There's so many layers to this onion. I think that a lot of my super liberal friends, and brothers and sisters and everything, I think that compassion's been weaponized so much and been hidden in, I'm going to get this wrong. I'm not going to do a good job of this. This is why we need the speakers from Rescue the Republic. We need people like Brett Weinstein and Robert Kennedy and all of those, Russell Brand's voice. I mean, maybe he talks a little fast. It's hard to get it too good, but I mean, they're incredible voices. I think that this whole idea of corporatism, of capitalism, I think a lot of liberals are always, I don't want to be, in favor of capitalism. I'm like, if you're not in favor of that, then you can't be in favor of the American dream.
The Untold Story continues right after this.
People freak out when they think that I would vote against abortion. And what's at stake is 10 times bigger, which is this behemoth of a corporate capture in every department of our lives, from, the banking systems to Hollywood. I mean, all we got to do is look at the shareholders of every huge company, and everything's somewhat compromised. Everything is. Pepsi and Coke are not against each other. They're the same company. Taking away national sovereignty, I know that this is a republic. This is what, it's not. When people say that he's a threat to democracy, and everything's been inverted. It's confusing to talk about because the whole situation is confusing. And I'm trying to make sense out of it. And I
know what you mean when you say that it's so interesting to watch the path of liberals and liberalism, and how, people who tend to support, for example, the war in Ukraine and continued commitment to the war in Ukraine on behalf of the United States, or people who tend to support the vaccination programs that go on and on and on, and every 6 weeks you're getting something on your cell phone that it's time for another shot. And the people who want freedom from those things used to be much more typically what we thought of as liberal growing up, but that's not the case anymore.
No.
So it is very interesting to see how it has, and I think that's why you see such a different voting base for someone like former President Trump, because I think that the political shift happens, every few decades. There's like a realignment of where people are in these parties and what they stand for. And I think we've seen a lot of that happening right now. What do you think will happen in this election? If you had to look into your crystal ball and say what you think will happen, what does it feel like for you? We're now 42 days out.
I mean, if I were on an independent podcast, I might say something different, but here on Fox, I think that's why I was fumbling so much, because, I know there are certain things that just have to be left unsaid at certain times. I don't know. I don't believe that the race is as close as everybody is saying it is. I really don't. I believe that most of America wants Trump to win. I believe it because I hear it every day in my liberal communities. I hear it coming from people who just haven't woken up yet that are still liberals. I hear it from Hollywood. I get those messages. Thanks for being the voice. Thanks for speaking out.
Interesting.
I see it in the chat rooms of every neighborhood chat room where they're talking about, a house robbery or whatever, and everyone, well, you voted it in, don't vote that way. It's super hard because I feel like there's so much ownership now, the lobbying that's going on and how they get people in office. And, I think there's so much corruption, and the American people have been lied to for so long. They don't know about what's going on in Brazil. They don't know what hand we've had in half of these wars. I also feel like the karma in America right now is compromised. I feel like we've been way too greedy, and not the American people, but the more the corruption is alive in that government, it's going to trickle down into the people. The people that can catch it, that are not impervious to that kind of corruption. What's going to happen? I hope we can rescue the republic. I really do. I still think that even if Trump and Kennedy and Tulsi and all of them get into office, I still think that this be a myth that we're up against, this avalanche that's kind of comes trickling down from the deep state and everything they've set in motion for so long. It's going to take we the people to really wake up, join hands, and be a part of their movement with them if they can get back in office. And if they don't get back in office for whatever reasons, another assassination attempt, another, I don't know, messing with, we know that we have a lot of new voters, we know we have that, they have that on their side right now.
Think about running for office yourself?
Oh, sorry. No. Oh my God, no. But I do love to take care of people. And I would do that quietly from behind the scenes. And I never anticipated being out talking about this stuff. I care so much about it because of my children, what I watched happen in the last 4 years, and what I know is going on, really deep underground with all of this stuff. Like I said, once you see it, you can't unsee it. I will do everything in my power to help rebuild anywhere I can, and to wake up the people that want to wake up if they don't want to wake up. And there are certain friends of mine, when they put the hand up and they're just like, no, I don't want to know. No, they just don't even want to know.
Well, we've lived in such a, post 9/11, that was the most the largest threat to our society in that way. Our children and we have not lived through, World War II or World War I, a massive upheaval of our society. And I think that there's a tendency to just not want to know about, things that are too challenging to think about. So I applaud you for speaking out and for speaking your mind. And I hope you'll join me again. I have a live show to do in a few minutes, but I wish we could keep talking because I could talk to you for another hour easily. But I thank you very much for joining me, Drea De Matteo. And you're a talented artist and an interesting voice on so many things. So thanks for being here. Great to meet you. You've been listening to The Untold Story with Martha McCallum. Don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. Make sure to rate and review. For more podcasts, go to foxnewspodcast.com. Listen ad-free with the Fox News Podcast Plus subscription on Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Prime members can listen to this show ad-free on the Amazon Music app.